The FIFA World Cup is more than just a football tournament, isn't it? It's a global phenomenon. A four-yearly festival that brings the entire planet to a standstill. For 1 month, politics are put on hold. Disagreements are put on hold. Daily routines are put on hold. Instead, we are united by the simple, beautiful drama of 22 players chasing a ball. It's the ultimate prize in football, the one every player dreams of lifting. The World Cup is where legends are made, where heroes are born, where nations hold their collective breath, a timeline of epic moments etched into billions of memories. It connects people from all walks of life, fans from rival nations sharing a drink, discussing a brilliant goal, or debating a controversial decision. They travel thousands of miles draped in their country's colors to be part of the noise, the passion, the sheer spectacle. It all had to start somewhere. For the World Cup, that somewhere was Uruguay in 1930. It was a bold idea from FIFA, spearheaded by its president Jules Rimet. The vision was to create a tournament that would pit the world's best national teams against each other. Getting there was half the battle. Many European nations were reluctant to make the long and expensive sea journey to South America. In the end, only 13 teams took part, a far cry from the global event we know today. But the seed was planted, and a new era for international football had dawned. Uruguay was chosen as the host for a good reason. They were celebrating 100 years of independence and were the reigning Olympic football champions. They even offered to pay for the travel and the accommodation of the participating teams. The final was a classic South American showdown between the hosts, Uruguay, and their neighbors, Argentina. The atmosphere was electric, but also incredibly tense. There was even a disagreement over which ball to use, so they used Argentina's ball in the first half and Uruguay's in the second. The football itself was very different from the modern game. The players wore heavy boots, the pitches were often rough, and the tactics were far simpler. Yet the passion and desire to win were just as intense as they are today. In that final match, played in the magnificent Estadio Centenario in Montevideo, Uruguay came from behind to win 4-2. The host nation became the first ever world champions, sparking wild celebrations across the country. It proved that the world was indeed ready for a World Cup. The legacy of that first tournament is immense. After the dark years of the Second World War, which forced a 12-year hiatus, the World Cup returned and began to grow into the global spectacle we recognize. The 1950s saw the emergence of new footballing powerhouses and the beginning of television's influence. But it was the 1958 tournament in Sweden that truly changed everything. It introduced the world to a player who would come to define the sport, its first global superstar. His name was Edson Arantes do Nascimento, but the world would come to know him simply as Pelé. He was just a boy, only 17 years old, when he arrived in Sweden. He was an unknown quantity outside of Brazil, but his talent was undeniable. After starting the tournament on the bench with an injury, he was brought into the team and immediately made an impact. He had it all: incredible skill, blistering pace, 2 brilliant feet, a maturity far beyond his years. He scored the winning goal in the quarterfinal against Wales, a hat-trick in the semi-final against France, and then 2 more goals in the final against the hosts, Sweden. It was a breathtaking arrival on the world stage. His second goal in that final is one of the most iconic in World Cup history. He controlled the ball on his chest, looped it over a defender's head, and volleyed it into the back of the net. When the final whistle blew and Brazil were champions for the first time, the young Pelé burst into tears on the shoulder of his teammate. They played a brand of football that was joyful, attacking, and full of flair, the famous Joga Bonito. For the first time, the World Cup was broadcast to a significant international audience, and Pelé became the face of the sport. He made football look easy, fun, and accessible, inspiring a generation of children from every corner of the globe to kick a ball and dream of emulating their new hero. Football had its first true global icon. If Pelé represented the beautiful, joyful side of football, then Diego Maradona, in 1986, represented its chaotic, controversial, utterly compelling genius. The tournament in Mexico was defined by one man. Maradona was at the absolute peak of his powers, a force of nature who seemed to be playing a different game to everyone else on the pitch. He was Argentina's captain, their talisman, their inspiration. He single-handedly dragged his team, which was good but not great, all the way to the final. Arguably the greatest individual performance in any World Cup. The defining match, of course, was the quarter-final against England. It was a game loaded with political tension, coming just 4 years after the Falklands War. In the space of just 4 minutes, Maradona scored 2 of the most famous, most contrasting goals in the history of the sport. The first was the infamous Hand of God. As the ball looped up in the penalty area, he challenged England's goalkeeper, Peter Shilton, and punched the ball into the net with his hand. The referee, unbelievably, didn't see it. It was a moment of outrageous cunning, blatant cheating. But if the first goal showed his dark side, the second showed his divine talent. Just minutes later, he picked up the ball inside his own half and set off on a mesmerizing slaloming run past 5 English players before rounding the keeper and slotting the ball home. It was voted the goal of the century by FIFA, a moment of individual brilliance that transcended the sport. Those 2 goals perfectly encapsulated the 2 sides of Maradona, the sinner, the saint. Argentina went on to win the World Cup, beating West Germany in a thrilling final. But the tournament will forever be remembered as Maradona's World Cup, a flawed genius, a rebel who played by his own rules, his talent undeniable. He demonstrated that one player, through sheer force of will and extraordinary ability, could dominate the world's biggest tournament. The end of the 20th century saw the World Cup become a truly modern commercial behemoth. The 1998 tournament, hosted by France, felt like a watershed moment. Stadiums were bigger, television coverage was more slick, global marketing was on a completely different level. The final pitted hosts France against reigning champions Brazil. Brazil were led by superstar Ronaldo, but the match became famous for the mystery surrounding Ronaldo's fitness before kickoff. On the day of the final, news broke that he had suffered a convulsive fit. He was initially removed from the starting lineup, only to be dramatically reinstated just before kickoff. He was a shadow of himself on the pitch. Brazil looked lost. France rose to the occasion magnificently. Led by the majestic Zinedine Zidane, they seized control. Zidane, incredible elegance and vision. He scored 2 brilliant headers from corners in the first half. The Stade de France erupted in delirium. The victory was hugely significant for France as a nation. The team, nicknamed the Rainbow Team, was made up of diverse players: Zidane of Algerian descent, Lilian Thuram from Guadeloupe, Marcel Desailly from Ghana. Their triumph was celebrated as a victory for a modern, multicultural France, a powerful symbol of unity. This tournament solidified the World Cup's status as a massive global media event. It marked a transition. Players became global celebrities. The tournament a multi-billion-dollar industry. 1998 was a perfect blend of high-stakes drama, sublime football, and profound cultural significance, setting the tone for the tournaments of the new millennium. The new millennium saw FIFA make good on its promise to make the World Cup a truly global event. In 2002, the tournament broke new ground by being held in Asia for the very first time: South Korea, Japan. This was a massive step, taking the world's biggest sporting event to a new continent and a new audience. The tournament was a resounding success, marked by incredible home support, impeccable organization, a series of surprising results. It proved football's heartland was no longer confined to Europe, South America. The co-hosts, South Korea, provided one of the tournament's greatest stories. South Korea embarked on an unbelievable journey to the semi-finals, knocking out Italy. Spain. Those matches were not without controversy. Their success sparked unprecedented public celebration across South Korea. It gave hope to smaller footballing nations everywhere. It showed that with organization, belief, and incredible home support, anything was possible. 8 years later, in 2010, the World Cup broke new ground again, this time in Africa. South Africa hosted a riot of color and sound, the vuvuzela everywhere. A proud moment for South Africa and for all of Africa. On the pitch, one team defined the tournament with a revolutionary style. Spain, the reigning European champions, finally fulfilled their world potential. Spain's tiki-taka mesmerized opponents and fans. Relentless possession, short passing, intricate passing, incredible teamwork. Xavi, Andres Iniesta, Sergio Busquets. Spain didn't just beat teams, they suffocated them, denying the ball for long periods. They won the final against the Netherlands with a late goal from Andres Iniesta. A victory for technical skill, collective intelligence over physical power, a style that would influence coaching worldwide, and the game would keep evolving. The World Cup returned to its spiritual home in 2014. Brazil, the five-time champions, hosted the tournament. It was the first time the country hosted since 1950. The expectation was immense. The whole nation expected their team, led by Neymar, to lift the trophy and banish the ghosts of the Maracanazo. The tournament started with a carnival atmosphere, vibrant color, passionate fans, fantastic attacking football. But the dream quickly turned into a nightmare. In the semi-final, Brazil came up against Germany. Brazil were without their talisman, Neymar. He was injured, and their captain, Thiago Silva, was suspended. What followed was a complete and utter collapse. Germany dismantled the host nation with clinical precision. They scored 5 goals in the first 29 minutes. Brazilian players were stunned. Fans in the stadium were stunned, and a global audience of billions watched in shock. The final score was 7-1 to Germany. It wasn't just a defeat. It was a national humiliation, the Minerazo. The images of Brazilian fans openly weeping were heartbreaking. It was a brutal lesson in the importance of team structure and tactical discipline over individual flair. Germany looked like a perfect footballing machine. Every player knew their role. Germany went on to win the final against a Lionel Messi-led Argentina. Mario Götze scored a brilliant extra-time winner. Their victory was the culmination of a long-term project, a 10-year plan. Focus on technical skill. Focus on youth academies. The 7-1 was the starkest illustration of their superiority and a shift in the balance of power. A moment of shock and drama that will be talked about for as long as the World Cup exists. The most recent World Cups have shown how the tournament continues to evolve, reflecting changes in society and technology. The 2018 tournament in Russia saw the introduction of the Video Assistant Referee, or VAR. For the first time, referees had a team of officials watching replays who could advise them on key decisions like goals, penalty kicks, red cards. It was a massive talking point throughout the entire tournament. The implementation of VAR certainly changed the dynamic of matches. More penalties as handballs and fouls were scrutinized, while bringing its own controversies. Fans and pundits debated the length of the delays, the inconsistency in its application, and whether it stripped the game of its human element and spontaneous flow, as entire stadiums waited with bated breath. 4 years later, the 2022 World Cup in Qatar was a tournament of firsts, and it was surrounded by debate long before a ball was even kicked. The first in the Middle East. The first in November and December, with intense scrutiny over workers' rights and the country's social laws. On the pitch, the tournament delivered incredible drama. We saw one of the greatest finals of all time, a thrilling 3-all draw between Argentina and France, which Argentina eventually won on penalties. It was the crowning glory for Lionel Messi, who finally got his hands on the one trophy that had eluded him. We also saw incredible underdog stories, none more so than Morocco's historic run to the semi-finals. The first African nation to ever do so, the first Arab nation to ever do so. It showed that the footballing world is becoming more competitive than ever, and that new chapters in the World Cup story can come from anywhere. As we look back over nearly a century of the World Cup, it's clear it's more than a collection of matches. It's a living, breathing history of our world, told through the universal language of sport. From the pioneering journey to Uruguay in 1930 to the high-tech drama of the modern era. The tournament has been a constant source of epic moments. Pelé, Maradona, Zidane, Messi. Players who didn't just play the game but changed it, inspiring millions. The World Cup's legacy is written in memories. A goal that made you jump for joy. The shock of an unexpected defeat. The pride of seeing your nation on the world's biggest stage. Stories passed down from grandparents to grandchildren. West Germany's comeback, 1954. England's triumph, 1966. Moments that connect generations. The tournament reflects our world. Triumphs, controversies, divisions, incredible moments of unity. The social and global impact has been profound, shining a spotlight on host nations, bringing economic booms and intense scrutiny of social and political issues. It has been a catalyst for change, a platform for protest, and a powerful symbol of national identity. Looking to the future, the World Cup will continue to evolve. The tournament will expand. New technologies will shape how we watch and officiate, and it will travel to new corners of the globe, writing new chapters and creating new legends. But at its heart, the essence remains the same, the simple joy of a ball hitting the back of the net, the pride of a nation, and the hope that, this time, it might just be your year. The next epic moment is always just around the corner.